How do you honor a warrior for fighting hard and celebrate a birthday too? According to Soso no Furiren's Aizen, you make them an absurdly massive 1 kilogram, 2.2 pound hamburger steak. I'll show you how to make it based on the official Soso no Furiren anthology manga. First, you'll dice either 2 small onions or 1 large onion. To dice onions, you'll first cut a peeled onion in half, then slice into the onion half horizontally, going up a few times, vertically about 1/8 an inch, then cut across the vertical cuts and quickly dice the onions, as we all don't have fine chopping magic like Frieren does. The recipe comes from Aizen, her former dwarf warrior traveling companion. In this anthology chapter, we learned Aizen not only has bad handwriting but also can't draw as well, as you can see from this picture of a cow he drew, but Frieren finds it as cute contrast to Aizen's normal stoic personality. Don't forget to keep your fingers in a cat's paw position to prevent your fingers from getting cut, and you don't need to turn yourself into a cat like Frieren did to do it. Dice the onions into smaller pieces by putting them in a pile, putting the tip of your knife on one end of the pile, then bring the knife down across the pile to make them smaller. You might end up crying due to the onions releasing its natural gas in the air. To prevent crying, I wear safety glasses, and you can too, and also reduce the effects by cutting them with a sharp knife, cooling the onion in the fridge before cutting, or soaking it in water first. Heat up a frying pan on the stove top at medium heat, add either olive oil or butter into the pan, and when it's hot enough, add the diced onion to saute. Although it looks like a lot of onions, the onions will shrink in size when cooked. Spread the onions out in the pan to allow for quicker and more even cooking. When the onions start turning transparent, you want to keep a close eye on them, as they're now caramelizing and can easily burn if you don't stir them every now and then. When the onions are an amber color, you'll take them off the heat and turn off the stove. Put the onions aside and spread them out to cool down. Put 1 kilogram of beef in a large mixing bowl. Add 200 grams of breadcrumbs, 1.5 teaspoon of salt, half teaspoon of black pepper. Crack 2 eggs on a flat surface, then add them to the bowl. While the manga uses 1 egg, 2 is better to help bind the beef and prevent it from crumbling. Add the sauteed onions. To mix all the ingredients together, I recommend doing it by hand, gloved if you like, but for the sake of sticking to the manga, I'll mix it without touching the meat, though sadly I don't have mixing and kneading magic like our favorite elf. Again, I recommend doing the mixing by hand, as it's not only easier, it binds everything together better. I know some people don't like touching raw meat. It's the sticky feeling Frieren doesn't like, so I'm mixing it with a spatula. Mix everything thoroughly. After you're done mixing, put a large pan on the stove top. I recommend a 12-inch cast iron pan, and turn the heat on to a little above low heat. Put a thin layer of olive oil or butter in the pan before putting in your beef mixture. When all the beef is in the pan, start compressing it all together as much as you can into a big patty shape, including rounding off the edges. You'll want to compress it as much as you can to prevent the hamburger steak from crumbling, which is easier to form and compress with your hands than a spatula. Push down in the center of the patty to create a small divot for an even-sized and flat-sided hamburger steak. You'll leave the hamburger steak alone to cook on low heat for 6 minutes. After the 6 minutes, you'll want to flip the patty to cook the raw side, but as it's a bit too heavy to flip easily, and you don't want to cause an accident like Frieren, I recommend first loosening the sides of the patty with a spatula, then moving the patty onto a large plate. If your patty falls apart like this while transferring it to the plate, you might be able to save it by forming the patty back together, and this is when I really recommend using your hands to compress and mold the meat into a big patty shape and sealing any cracks before the next step. While wearing heat-resistant oven mitts, turn over the pan used earlier and cover the hamburger steak on the plate, then flip both together so the patty is back in the pan with the raw side down. Put the pan back on the stovetop and cook the raw side again for 6 minutes. So that you don't bite into a raw hamburger steak, you'll then cook it in water after the 6 minutes are over. Add about 250 milliliters of water into the pan, which should be enough to cover the top of the hamburger steak. Keep about 100 milliliters of water on the side just in case you need to quickly add more water if the water boils away too quickly. Turn the heat up to medium, then cover the pan with a lid. I recommend medium heat and a lid which fits inside the pan to allow steam to come out, and it'll be less likely meat drippings will come out of the pan and cause a mess and a fire. You'll cook the meat for about 15 minutes after covering it with a lid. You'll want to hear this boiling water noise while the meat cooks, and if you stop hearing it much earlier than the 15 minutes, you'll add the water you kept on the side earlier to the pan to prevent the meat from burning and sticking. Around the 15-minute mark, you can check if the meat is done by sticking a toothpick in the middle, and if it comes out clean, it's done. Transfer the hamburger steak to a large plate, then enjoy eating your 1 kilogram warrior honoring hamburger steak made by Frieren to honor the warriors Shi, Fern, and Stark are, as well as Stark's birthday present. The alternative is to give Stark a rare potion which melts clothes, but Fern doesn't like that, so a hamburger steak it is, haha. I'll be eating the hamburger steak to honor the hardworking person I am, warrior or not, with a croissant lick in the manga. Look how thick the hamburger steak is. It's cooked thoroughly and flat on each side, which is what we want to see. Itadakimasu. Delicious. It's soft, you can taste the meat, good seasoning, moist, and has a nice mouthfeel. Although the serving size is technically for one person, I don't think most people can eat this much meat by themselves in one sitting, so you can save the rest for another meal or share it with your fellow warriors. If you don't want to use beef, you can replace it with pork. Funny enough and frustrating as well, I too ended up with rejected steak cakes like Frieren while working on this recipe, as I tested the amount of seasoning and cooking methods to find what works the best. While I didn't have eating raw meat issues, I did need to find the best lid to use for the pan to prevent meat juices from overflowing while still cooking the meat thoroughly, testing the seasoning and ingredients while staying as close to the original as possible, best method for flipping and taking the heavy 1 kilogram hamburger steak out of the pan as I don't have magic, and more. I loved reading this chapter of the anthology by Kasan, as it's a more in-depth look into the process of Frieren cooking from Aizen's directions, which she found while thinking of a present for Stark's birthday in chapter 26. Although Frieren the elf is on a journey to learn more about humans after realizing she didn't learn enough about the human Himmel, the hero, after his death despite traveling 10 years together, while also collecting useless spells, she sometimes seems apathetic to her current traveling companions, Fern and Stark. Frieren does care about them though, and she shows it the most by remembering their birthdays and giving them a gift, like this hamburger steak. Stark also has fond memories of hamburger steak, as it's something Aizen, his master, also made for him on his birthday, and one of the few fond memories he has of his brother who passed away while fighting demons. What would you like us to make next from Sousou no Frieren? Frieren's Merkur pudding? Stark's jumbled berry special? Let us know! The ingredients to make this 1 kilogram warrior honoring hamburger steak includes 1 kilogram, 2.2 pounds of beef, 200 grams of breadcrumbs, 2 eggs, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, half a teaspoon of black pepper, 2 small onions or 1 large onion, and olive oil or butter as needed. You can buy the ingredients you'll need through the links in the description and see the recipe as well. Support the mangaka by buying the English manga through the link in the description, and hopefully the anthology will also be translated into English with enough interest shown in the manga. If you enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more manga recipe videos and to prevent elves from being eaten by mimics, haha. Hope you enjoy making and eating this absurdly massive hamburger steak, my fellow warriors.